John Elway, welcome into Cars and Culture. What a pleasure to talk to you. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you. Good to be a part of this.
Let's start with the thing or two that most people wouldn't know. You're a couple days away from heading to your own, I think, personal paradise. Most folks might not know that the former Bronco really enjoys being out in the open Idaho countryside, right?
Yeah, it's actually more of a lake than countryside. Just a beautiful lake up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So always sneak off there for about 4 or 5 weeks each summer, which is a great place to escape and get away from everything. So we're looking forward to at the end of the week moving our way up there for a little vacation.
You're a long way from the California kid. How much did your experience living in the Rockies change you?
I moved around quite a bit as a kid. My dad was a football coach, and so I moved around a lot. I was born in the state of Washington, and he was a high school coach. And we went from there to Western Washington to the town where my parents grew up, which was Hopeland, Washington. And my dad was a junior college coach there. We went from there to Missoula, Montana. So got a taste of Montana, and then he went from there down to Washington State, which is where Pullman, Washington, and Eastern Washington. So and then from there I went to Southern California where I went to high school. So I kind of moved around quite a bit. So I was used to seeing different places and getting used to different places. But obviously, been in Denver now for about 40 years, and so which is hard to say because I can't believe it's been 40 years. But it's been a great place to raise my kids and a
Sure.
great place to play and work.
You kind of adopted Denver as your home, as you said, and then you also adopted about 1 million fans. It's got to be crazy for you to think about how a place like Denver has become so influential in your life.
Well, it really has, and I think that essentially, I grew up here after my adult life has been growing up here, and the friendships that I've been able to make, and the relationships, and and just the people that make up this state. It was great being able to play for them and being a quarterback here because they have such a great following, not only in Colorado, but there's really kind of a five-state region here in the Midwest or whatever we want to call the mountain states that have a great affinity for the Denver Broncos. And so it was great to be able to play with in front of them and with that loyalty to the team. And so, unfortunately, we were able to get some things done for them finally, after the struggles in the 80s and then finally got something done in the 90s. But there's it means so much. The Denver Broncos mean so much to the state and this region that it's a lot. There's a lot of pressure with it, but it sure is a lot. It's very satisfying when things are going well.
I'm guessing you didn't follow the Broncos when you were growing up.
I didn't, and I knew of them. I knew of Floyd. Blanking on his last name right now. He's our Hall of Famer running back, but it'll come to me. It's early in the morning here, but um, I knew of them, but I didn't know a lot of them. I was a big Cowboy fan when I was run and when I was young, and so
Who wasn't?
yeah, I know exactly. Who still isn't, right? Even though
Right.
they're not winning, right? They always seem to have that tremendous following, but then once I got traded here, they weren't really on the list when I boycotted Baltimore and said I wasn't going to play in Baltimore, and we'd asked Denver if they had any interest in trading for me, and they did not have any interest, and so it really kind of came out of nowhere and ended up being here in Denver, which was the greatest thing that could have happened.
So we'll talk about your football home. We'll talk about the influence that you had on the field. But let's start with business and let's start with cars. What attracted you to automotive retail?
Well, what happened was Pat Bolin, he was our owner for a long, long time, passed a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He had been in the automobile business up in Canada among a few other businesses, and so there was an operator down here that was looking for some money. So he went to Pat and asked Pat to kind of back him in a Jeep store here in town, and then when he did that, also kind of got me involved and asked me if I wanted to get involved on the marketing side, gave me a real small piece of the deal to do the marketing and get involved with that. So I said, sure, I'd do that. And then as I kind of got immersed in it in the off season, learned a little bit about the business, enjoyed what I really enjoyed is I enjoyed the competitive side of it. And the fact that, there's a number of cars that you put on that board day in and day out. And so I like that competitive side of it. And then as times went on, that was back in '89, and then '91, I had a chance to get more involved with Mr. Boland. We bought another store, and then from there it kind of just ballooned. And I got to the point, he got to the point where he didn't want to go any further, so I ended up buying a Toyota store and a Honda store, and some couple Nissan stores and a Ford store here in town in Denver. And that's really, I did it. That was started in 1991, and I was probably in my ninth year in the NFL. And because I was looking for what all started starting to think what I was going to do when I got done playing football. And so that was kind of that. I enjoyed the business. And so I ended up getting about 6 stores here. And then in 1998 was the year I retired, but it was also the year Wayne Huizenga, which is now Auto Nation, used to be Republic, as you know, started rolling up some auto groups. And so he came to me and offered me too much money. So there went my plan. So I sold those. And my plan as far as what I was going to do when I got done went right out the window. But then eventually with it, after a 5-year non-compete, got back into the business with my partner, Mitch Pierce, who's a tremendous dealer and partner and does a tremendous job. And so we've got about 5 or 6 stores now, 3 in Colorado, one in Salt Lake, and then 3 out in California. So, I enjoy the business. I enjoy the competitive side of it, and it's a great business. And if you do it right and you operate it right, now that's not much different than any other business, but I think even more so in the car business. If you have great people and you have a great team and you work together and you take care of your customers, you can create legacies and dealerships for a long, long time. And that's what our goal was.
That first store in downtown Denver, what do you remember the most about it? What are your first memories of going to that Jeep
dealership? It was up on 104th. It was a little, it was north of town, and it was probably, I lived south of town. Where we worked was where our complex was right at that point in time was off 58th, and so this was off 104th, so it was 50 blocks north of there. So I could run up there, but I enjoyed the feel. I've always enjoyed getting in there, and plus, and I've always said this: if I wasn't a football player, I probably would have been an accountant, because I was my
Really?
strength in school was numbers, and so I enjoyed numbers. And as you know, in the car business, there's a lot of numbers that go along there. So I enjoyed that side of it because it came rather easy. Now the sales part was a little tougher, but I enjoyed the numbers and what it was all about. So. And we had just redid the store. Once they bought the store, they remodeled the store, and it was a real nice Jeep store. So enjoyed watching that process and watching that store continue to climb in sales and, in the Metro Denver area.
There aren't a lot of accountants that are confused with quarterbacks.
I know that. I know, but it seemed like numbers always came easy. So I figured that would probably be my route. But really, as far as a goal, it was probably 2% of my goal when it came to what I really wanted to be.
What surprised you about being in the car business?
I think the complexity of it. I think if you look at it, you really have 5 different businesses in one operation with your new cars, used cars, parts, service, as well as finance. And so, you have 5 different individual businesses within one, which all of those had to, and all of those kind of had to hold hands to make the dealership really be successful. And so that to me is what's intriguing. I think there's a lot more than people understand under one roof when it comes to a dealership.
Entrepreneurs too, right? When you think of the challenges that have gone on, you've seen firsthand here just during COVID over the last 14, 15 months. Car dealers are resilient. They bounce back, right, John?
They really are, and they are. That's the other great thing is, there's a lot of really good. They're as you said, they're great entrepreneurs because they're always working. There's always it's a very competitive business, as you know. I mean, in each city, you have several Jeep stores, you have several Chevrolet stores, several Toyota stores, and so you try to figure out how you can beat the guy, in the market next to you. And so the competitiveness to it, plus again going back to the being entrepreneurial and trying to figure out how to take care of people, and also once they get into the dealership, how you treat them once they get in the dealership.
It's no different than lining up against somebody across the offensive line, and whether it's somebody across the street who's trying to sell that car faster than you are, trying to offer a better deal.
Because I tell you, the only difference there is the guy lining up across me in football is trying to kill me. So the other dealers weren't trying to kill me, but it wasn't nearly as physical. But you're right, when it comes down to a competitive level, it's about the same.
How do you compare it to the other businesses that you're in? When you go around Denver, you see the Elway restaurants. You also have other private investments. How does automotive stack up against those?
I think that yeah, I've been asked that question several times, and there is a big difference because I think when in the car business, you're selling them, what the manufacturers, whatever manufacturer you're selling for, whether it be Toyota, and so you're selling their product, and so the quality of that product, especially if you're talking about Toyota, really all cars today, the quality of all cars have increased. They keep increasing year and year in and year out, and so it's more about how you're going to sell that car. Whereas compared to the restaurant business, you got to worry about what steak, because each steak has to be cooked on its own, and so the quality of that steak is up to us also. And so I think that there's when you talk about that restaurant business, you're talking about the quality of the food. But then again, if you can get the quality of the food consistent, night in and night out, you're going to be successful in the restaurant business. But in the car business, again, the quality of the cars and what you're selling, because you're selling the same thing that the guy next door is selling to you, or the guy in the market next to you is selling. You just got to figure out the best way to treat those customers to where that experience when they come into the dealership separates you from those other dealers.
Did you grow up a kid interested in cars?
I did. I always my car. The one car I always wanted was a Corvette when I was young. Even though I never, my dad being a football coach, we were pretty, we didn't have a lot of money, so I had to work for my first car. So eventually worked for that, and
Which was what?
was able to do that. My first car was a Datsun 710, and it was a
Okay.
hand-me-down from my big sister. So
You were how old?
I was 17 at the time.
Okay.
So yeah, drove that, and then eventually went to college. And I didn't have a lot of time. My dad was lucky enough that my dad didn't want me working. He wanted me out throwing the football and working, working on the football field and baseball field when I had time to. So I was fortunate to get his support there. But so that's where I spent most of my time.
What did you buy with your first NFL check in the vehicle front?
You know what? I actually signed with the Yankees, and after my sophomore year at Stanford, I was playing football and baseball there my first 2 years. Went there on a football scholarship, but was also allowed to play baseball, and I ended up signing with the Yankees after my sophomore year at Stanford, and played actually my junior year. Between my junior and senior year, my summer job was I played baseball for the Yankees up in single A ball up in Oneonta, New York. And so, but my first check that I got from the Yankees, I went out and bought it was another Datsun. I think I'm trying to remember, it was a Datsun. It was the sports car, the hatchback sports car.
The Z, probably.
The Z20, yeah, 280Z.
280Z.
280Z, exactly.
Great
it was
car.
A black 280Z with gold interior, and so I was riding around on campus my last 2 years in pretty good shape.
I'd say you're in good shape. Yeah, for sure. Well, you were a Datsun fan. You've been hooked into the Datsun family.
I was. I don't know why, but we did get hooked into the Datsun family, and then obviously changed to Nissan. But so the Datsuns were the first two cars I had.
Wow. How close were you, John, to going that route of the baseball field versus the football field? I mean, how razor thin was that decision?
I'll tell you this. I really wanted to play quarterback. I think that, I spent more time once I got into high school. I spent more time, even though I played summer baseball. But once I got into high school, I was really concentrating on football. And so, I think if it had been any other position, it'd have been really, really, really close. Probably would have played baseball, but since I was playing quarterback, I love playing quarterback. I love getting my hands on the ball every down, and I love being able to throw it and get in the huddle and lead those guys on the offensive side. So my love was football. And so, and then the Baltimore Colts drafted me in 1983 and decided we made a decision that, if they didn't trade me somewhere else, then I was going to play baseball for a year and have my name go back in the draft, but also see how I could, how I could handle baseball too, because I thought I was a better football player, even though I had some really good years in baseball. And my first year in A ball, I hit 318 and had a pretty good year. So, And then I had some of my cohorts at Stanford that played in Major League Baseball. And so I think that, I think I could have made, made the majors, but I'm not sure I would have been the baseball player that I was a football player.
It's interesting, introspective comment. I'm sure you've had years to think about that.
Yeah, I've
And
been asked that question several times.
sure.
But I love baseball too. And I still love, watching baseball. I love going to the ballpark and sitting there in this, Saturday afternoon and watching baseball. So I'm still a big fan of it.
Your father, Jack, such an enormous influence on your life, built that competitive spirit, helped cultivate that competitive spirit, one you just talked about related to auto dealerships, but of course on the football field. What are your earliest memories of Jack and his influence on your sports life? Was it the ping pong table in the basement?
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of several things that he used to do to create competitiveness. And I didn't have a brother. I had an older sister that was a year and a half older, and then a twin sister. So we were all real close in age. And so, I think the first thing that he ever did to start creating the competitiveness is we used to race to get his slippers. And so, he'd be sitting on the couch, get home, and say, okay, who's the first one to can get my slippers? And so he cultivated that within that. And I think that the competitiveness comes from, number one, I think a lot of it's God given, but I think it's also wanting to be the best at what you do. And if you're good at what you want to, if you have that desire to be great at what you do, I really believe it gives you a head start in anything, because you're going to keep striving for those goals to be as good as you can be, whatever you may be, whatever you may do. But I think competitiveness really is what separates a lot of different people in this world, as far as, the success they have compared to, average success to great success. And it's those people that want to be great are the ones that seem to have the most success.
And back to the ping pong table, you would oftentimes play until what, 2 or 3 in the morning? Is that right?
Yeah, we did. And when I was young, I was probably in the 7th and 8th grade, and he was a pretty good ping pong player. And, he was a football coach. And so, he was on the road a lot those days because recruiting was such a big deal in college football. And so he was gone a lot. So I cherished every little bit of time that I got with him. And when we did get a chance to play ping pong, that's why I usually went to, 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And it was the fact that, not that I was beating him all the time. It's like I wanted to beat him one time. And then as soon as I beat him one time, I wanted to beat him again, beat him the next time. And so I think that's what drove that, because, again, he was my dad and a guy that, I wouldn't be where I am without him. And such a great influence in my life.
And interesting, after high school football games, I've heard the stories of you avoiding the pizza parlor for at least 30 to 60 minutes because you'd go home and talk about not necessarily the plays that went right or wrong, but you talked about, or he talked with you about what you said to your teammates. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too was, when I was playing, I loved basketball too. So, back in those days, they didn't have all the other sports. It was really just football, basketball, and baseball. They, tennis and those type things. And so I enjoyed playing any kind of sport because I got a chance to compete. And I think that, before we even got to, the high school level, he taught me how to handle and how I reacted to different things during games, whether you get a bad call or, a lot of times you see people yelling at umpires or yelling at referees. And I remember one time I talked back to a referee a couple of times, and my dad went to the coach and said, well, don't let him play the next game until he learns how to respect referees and understand that the bottom line is it's not the calls that are being made, it's how you're playing. And so therefore, those type basic lessons that he taught me was the fact that, those outside circumstances, whether it be referees, umpires, whatever it may be, you can't control those. And so it's how you react to those situations to be able to give your team a chance to win later and concentrate on what you can do and what you can't control. So he did that. But then when I got to high school, because he was at Cal State Northridge at the time, and so I would, after each game, and that he could see that, I'd go home and I'd get his, viewpoint of what I was seeing in the secondary, if there's some throws I missed, why I missed them. talk about techniques, talk about my drops. And so I did that for the first 30 or 45 minutes. Plus also, even if I played well, if I played poorly, I wanted his critique on what he thought I did right and what I thought I did wrong and how I could get better. And so that way, having a dad as a football coach was invaluable for me.
An enormous influence. When you think about your football career, who else, I guess, would you count as your mentor? Who else was such a huge influence on your life?
I had several. Obviously, I had, my hero when I was playing football was Roger Staubach, and because we talked about earlier, I was a Cowboy fan, and so I was a big fan of his, and how he played the game and how he went about the game, and the time that he put into Naval Academy, and the sacrifice he made to that before he got into the NFL. That he's 29 years old or 28 before he got in the NFL, and so his commitment to what he was doing at that time, but also the type of football player it was, and then also later in life watching the success that he had, in business after life, and so that was the reason why he was such my hero. I didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time with him, but the other coach that I had, and I had several great coaches, and I think that is the key thing for, a football player, that if you have coaches that are very good coaches, they're the ones that can take you to the next level. Jim Fossil was my coach, who just recently passed last week. He was my quarterback coach at Stanford, and then became the offensive coordinator there. And so early after high school, then into college, to be able to spend that time with Jim day in and day out, working on technique and drops and quarterback play, and understanding that you don't have to score a touchdown every play, and understanding that you take what the defense gives you. And so learning the game of football, Jim Fossil was a huge influence there. And then when I got to Denver with the Broncos, Mike Shanahan was my coach, and another tremendous coach who should be in the Hall of Fame and hopefully gets there soon, but was my quarterback coach for a while, and then became the offensive coordinator. Then he left, and then he came back and became my head coach when we were able to win 2 championships in '98 and '99. So, and Mike was as big as my dad, as well as Jim, and Mike Shanahan. The 3 really big, huge influences in my life when it came down to my football career.
Some amazing names, John. What are the strongest memories for you when you now sit and think about your career? I mean, the Super Bowls are obvious, but I'm guessing there are probably other moments that really light a fire inside you when you think about them.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I think that any time I was fortunate to play, at Stanford, we had moderate success. We never were able to go to a bowl game at Stanford, and so that was, always wanted to figure out. And now back then there weren't nearly as many bowl games, so they were a little bit tougher to get to. But we're never able to get there. And but just the relationships I made at Stanford, I still have several friends that I'm real close to there. So Stanford had a huge impact on me, and just the people that I met there. And then I think early in my career, with the Broncos, we were able to go to 3 Super Bowls in 4 years in the '80s. My 4th and 6th and 7th years, we were able to go to those. And each game, we lost all 3 of those. And I think by losing those 3, it had just increased the drive of what I wanted to be as a football player, and knowing that I wanted to be the best quarterback that ever played the game. That was my goal. And it was always the fact that, that's what I strove for, to be the best. Now, the only way that you can be the best is, you got to lead your team to championships. And I think that's what that's what puts these, even in today's game, the difference between the great quarterbacks and the good quarterbacks are the quarterbacks that can lead their teams to Super Bowl and Super Bowl victories. Whether you throw for 400 yards in the Super Bowl, or you throw for 130 yards like I did in my first Super Bowl win. There's other things that you do at the quarterback position that, other than throwing the football and picking up first downs, but the influence and the leadership that you have to provide, that is part of that quarterback position.
It's a teamwork. It's the competitiveness. It's the unity, right, of bringing a group together.
100%,
Yeah.
because especially as a quarterback, you're relying on 10 other guys. You're really relying on 53 other guys, but you're really relying on, everybody with 11 guys on the field at a time as an offense. Everybody has to be doing their job for you to be successful offensively. And so that's part of that leadership, that the quarterback position, needs, is that you have to be able to get everybody to play at a higher level and get them playing together. And again, I think that, Chris, goes to the same thing as far as any business that you're in, whether it be the dealerships or the restaurants that I have, that, everybody has to be on the same page. And teams win. Individuals don't win. Individuals win in tennis. They win in golf. They win in other individual sports. But when it comes down to football and business, teams win with a philosophy that everybody believes in and everybody's pulling in the same direction.
Then you transitioned into a leadership position within the Broncos, which not a lot of Hall of Famers would do. You won on the field, you won as an executive, and you were a Hall of Fame, and there's only one other guy who's done that beyond you, and it's Mike Ditka.
Uh-huh.
So how...
Well, yeah, I think that, because I knew I wanted to get, obviously when, like I said earlier, really my goal was to have my dealerships when I got done playing football. And then so once we sold, and then I started to kind of say, okay, now what's the next step? And that's when I started saying, okay, I want to get back in football. And I did not necessarily want to get back in football as a coach. I'd seen the time that my dad had spent, the time he spent away from the family, on the road, and the commitment that it takes by coaches, to be great and to be great coaches, and the relationship that they have with their players. But I didn't want to have 4 kids. I didn't want to have to spend that amount of time away from my family. And so that's why I decided I want to get involved in the front office. And so in 2003, I got involved in the Arena Football League, and we own the team here in Denver along with Stein and Pat Bolin. And so I got my MBA running the Arena Football team, and we were able to win a championship one year in that. But it was a great learning experience for me, and to get that experience. And then at that point in time, wanted an opportunity to get back in the NFL and hopefully lead a team from the front office, and really use everything that I had learned from playing quarterback, relationship with players, relationship with coaches, trying to know what I like in football players, and be able to try to put that all to use and put it back and use those to be able to put these players and coaches in the best position for them to be successful too. And so the Broncos gave me an opportunity to get back in 2011, and I really enjoyed that. I did it for 10 years. This year I moved up, and so I don't have the day-to-day relation or responsibilities anymore. But I really enjoyed that, and we were fortunate enough to be able to convince Peyton Manning to come play for us in 2012, which was
an amazing stroke.
It was great for us, because it just and he was such a great player, and he came in here. We were fortunate to get enough good players around him to be able to win a championship. And so I've been very fortunate, and now I'm stepping back. It's the right time for me to step back, and now I've got 7 grandkids, so now I'm looking forward to spending more time with them.
John Elway has 7 grandchildren. I can't believe this.
I know. Every time I say that, I can't believe that either, because I don't feel like I'm old enough to have 7 grandkids. But very fortunate. I've got 4 beautiful kids that are doing well in life, and so I'm very proud of that, and to be able to spend time with them and support them.
Brief personal story. You broke my dad's heart twice, in Cleveland and against Cleveland in Denver. We thought he was going to the Super Bowl, but you went instead, John.
Yeah, that was the drive back in '86. That was kind of my coming out party, and I think that I struggled my first couple years, especially my first year. Struggled, and because with everything that coming out, I was the first player taking the draft, and then said, well, I'm not going to play for them. So obviously got labeled a little bit as a spoiled brat, and so I had to kind of battle through all those. And so I know it's amazing how many times I run into people that talking about how I ruined childhoods and everything because of the Browns, and because the Browns have such a great history, and we ended up beating them 3 times in the 80s to go to the Super Bowls. And so But those games kind of put me on the map, and we were able to battle through that. Then I had then I had a long dry spell there, about 8 years before we were able to get back to the Super Bowl and finally win one. But I think that the perseverance side and the drive to continue to work and also be with a tremendous organization and be able to play for great coaches like a Mike Shanahan, who was able to come over here and get the culture right and allow us to go and be able to win a world championship.
The pressure of the NFL, how intense is it now? How different is it now than when you were a player?
Well, it's different just because I think there's always been pressure, right? And everybody applies their own pressure to themselves and the importance that it is to themselves. But I think the NFL and what the size of the NFL, how important it is to our country, and being the number one game that people like to watch, and so there's a lot of pressure with it. Plus, you have the fan bases, and winning championships is what people want to do, and it's the entertainment business. And so, the one thing that you have to do in this league is you have to win. And if you don't win, then they're going to move on and find someone else that's going to figure out how to win. And it's such a difficult business because of, it's such a level playing field because of the draft and how everything's set up with the salary cap, and that, every team is on the same playing field, and it's a matter of who can be better at what they do to be able to win championships. And so, but again, I think in today's game the difference is with social media and everything, the way the media is, it's just continued to grow. But now adding social media to that, it just adds that much more pressure to these players. And so there's still, there's always been a great amount of pressure. It's just even more so now with the amount of people that are watching the game, but also the amount of people through Twitter and the different platforms that can get their opinions out there rather than having to sit on talk radio and wait for an hour before they can get on and give their opinion.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me about your special relationship with Pat Bowlen.
Well, he was a tremendous owner. And I think that the one thing about Pat Bowlen was, he was a triathlete his whole life and a competitor, and to be able to have an owner that the number one goal is to win championships rather than be successful as a business. As a player, you couldn't ask for anything else more from an owner. And so Pat put all his resources, every bit of resources he could, back into the football team that would give us the best chance to win football games. And so that's why I was so fortunate to be able to play with him. That's why this organization has been successful for so long and had the track record that it has, is because of the fact that he laid that foundation, that the goal here is to win football games, and the business side of it is to go out and make enough money that we can support and provide the resources to the football team to give you a chance to win. And so as a football player, you can't ask for anything else more than that opportunity from an owner. And that's what Pat gave us.
He liked you, didn't he?
Well, we had a good relationship, and I think he liked it because I think, we were on the same page when it came down to being competitors. He liked that. And I think that, I was fortunate to be able to get to play a lot of golf with him, and those got very competitive too. And so I was very fortunate to have that close relationship, and not only with him, but his family, and get to know his kids. And so, yeah, it was a tremendous opportunity for me.
In your business life, let's talk mentors. Who do you turn to? Who have you studied? Who do you admire when it comes to the competitive winning spirit on the business side of the field?
I would tell you this, and it's kind of been always my philosophy on how I invest too, and the fact that I invest in people, and not necessarily ideas, not necessarily just flyers, or but strong people that have a chance, to give you a chance to think the same way that I think, that want to be the best. And when you start a business, you want to create a legacy business, which means you want to be great for a long time. And it never got into the business for the short hit, that if we were going to do something, that we were going to provide services, whatever it may be, that lasted a long time. And I believe that businesses, if you're going to be great at business, you you can be good. To be great, you got to be good for a long, long time. Because if you're good all the time, that makes you great. And so, I was very fortunate to meet quality people in the car business when I got into it. Mitch Pierce is my partner in the car business right now, and he's a tremendous dealer and a tremendous operator. And so, he's the guy that I always kind of went to when it came to the car business. Maybe even before I got in there, I was always learning. And I think that, another one of my philosophies is I'm not one that does a lot of talking. I do a lot of listening, because the only way I can get better is if I'm listening. Because if I'm talking, I'm not getting any better. But, Mitch has been a guy, especially in the car business, that, I've really admired, and Paxton Gagne and Todd Mall and different people that run the organization now that have been tremendous. And then same thing with the restaurants. I tried to pick the best restaurateur that I knew, because it's not a business that I knew. It was a business that I swore I'd never get into, because there'd been so many athletes that had failed in the restaurant business. But what I tried to do is pick the best operator and the guy that had most success that I knew in the restaurant business, and that was a guy named Tim Schmidt. And so, I think and I say this all the time, is I'm not necessarily great at business, but I'm really good at picking good partners, and that's where it has been that's worked for me.
Well, and in fact, in the NFL category, there's one Hall of Fame coach whose restaurant business has done extremely well through the years, Mr. Shula.
Yes, yeah, and so, he's one of those that, obviously, with the success that he's had in football, and then to be able to have success in the restaurant business. Another one is Joe Gibbs. I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at the success that Joe Gibbs has had, and the world championship as a football coach, and then also getting into NASCAR and being successful there. And so Mr. Penske, another one, the success that he's had in his life. And so I've looked at those type people and admired them, and kind of, set my goals to hopefully be somewhat like they are, and as far as, and have somewhat the success that they've had.
How do you think about your personal name or just the usage of your own brand in businesses? How do you vet
Well,
the opportunities to really protect your name, John?
yeah, and I think that's been a big thing. And I think that, when you brand something with your name, that you're going to get one shot. And I say this all the time, is the fact that obviously with my brand and how I'm perceived by the public and what I've done in football, that's, obviously given me a big head start. But I think that, and I say this all the time, is that we're going to be held at different standards no matter what business we have, because of what I've done in football, and the brand that I've created there, and the expectations that people have because of, football is that puts you on TV. And so the notoriety is there, and you're popular, and they see that. And so that is something that I've, has been a big focus of me, is protecting that brand, and making sure that brand is that my brand, and where I've tried to treat people throughout my whole life, and portray who I am to people, that transcends itself into what we do as businesses. And so, that's why we get, when I talk to our dealership group, and I say it every year, I said, it's not the name on this building that makes it work. It's the people inside the building that make it work. Now, the brand's going to give us an opportunity to show what we can do. And that's what will get people, the name and the brand will get people to the door. But ultimately, it's how they're treated when they get in that door. And so that's why our focus has always been to make sure that when we get an opportunity to service, whether it be someone buying a car, restaurant, that they are taken care of to the ultimate best that we can possibly take care of it. And I think that's, and again, I go back, same thing, is the legacy side of it, is that we're not doing this for a short period. We're in this for the long haul. And so therefore, each customer that comes in needs to be taken care of it one customer at a time, and really create those customers for life.
And for you, you've got to avoid oversaturation as well. I mean, I don't think we want Elway bike rentals or some other extensions that don't make sense for you.
No
Correct?
question. And I think that there's only so much time anybody would have to make sure that brand is being, is handled the right way. And so that's why it was always been very important for me not to, as you said, not to oversaturate, not do too many things. I don't want to be we're more about quality than we are quantity, and that's why, and that's been my philosophy forever, is to do the right things, and what you do it great, and don't get yourself spread too thin.
Are you interested in acquiring more dealerships? Will we see the Elway name in other places going forward?
Yeah, I think we're still continuing to look at different opportunities and see what's available. We look at several deals all the time, and so sure, we're always looking to expand, and in the right areas, in the right markets, and in the right situation. And so we're very picky what we do. I mean, I think if you look back, we've had, like I said, I think we have 7 dealerships now. We could probably have, if we wanted to, we could have 25, but I think that we've expanded in the right ways to where we can make sure that the brand and the way that we do business continues to be consistent with all the dealerships that we do have.
With the potential disruptions in the retail and auto retail space, do you try to hedge your auto retail bets a little bit just in case it doesn't directionally go where you want it to go? And related to that, I think you're an investor or have been an investor in Vroom or RumbleOn. Is that right?
Yeah. I was with Varun way back, and with Marshall Chesron when it first got started, and it was starting as Auto America, and was going to be, kind of something like CarMax. So we're going to try to do several, super used car stores. And then that, Vroom has come several different, it's come through different iterations of what it was going to be, to where now it's, totally online with, Paul Hennessy running the business as a CEO, and his experience at Priceline. And so feel really good about where he's going and where the next steps are going, especially with what we've seen with the experiences over the last year with COVID, and, the amount of people that are going to be working at home, and how much people are going to buy. Now they're starting to feel comfortable buying cars online. And I believe that, something that's only going to continue to grow. So, diversification is always key, because you never know. There's so many disruptions coming into the market in all businesses now, that I think you have to be ready to adjust, not only, at the Vroom level, but also our dealership level.
So I'm not going to ask you about your Datsun collection, but I will ask you about your car collection in general. I saw a Barrett Jackson video from a while back where your 1992 Dodge Viper RT10 Roadster was auctioned off a while back. What else do you have in the garage?
I've got I'm not a big collector, but I do have one of the first Supras, one of the new Supras that came out with Toyota. I think
Fabulous.
I got 007. And so I do have a new Supra, and then I have the Dodge, and I'm blanking on it right now. It's the Z28, but it's got the big engine in it. I'm blanking on it now. This is the old age that's coming. Now you can tell I'm a grandfather of 7 when I can't to remember. But and then I've got an Apache 1960 Chevrolet Apache little truck that Mitch actually bought me for my 60th birthday last year. And so that's kind of
You're born in 1960.
That's right. So get that, and it's orange, and I had the seats made out of footballs, and so
Wilson leather, right?
Wilson leather, exactly. So that's kind of my little love right now.
And I think there's maybe a Bentley involved.
I have a Bentley, yeah. I'm a Bentley guy. That's the only guy that that's the only one I have outside of a dealership that we own. But fell in love with the Bentley back in 07, and actually had that one for about 13 years, and then just upgraded again this past year to the newer Bentley. So, but do love the cars, but I'm still one that goes, wow, how can I go out and buy cars when I've got a bunch sitting on lots that I can drive?
Yeah, right.
Right.
You're still a pretty avid golfer too, aren't you, John?
I am. Yeah, I am. Golf is something that I think as a football player or as a competitor, whatever you do, that you never lose that edge. And I think that golf is something that you can play for a long, long time. And I didn't play when I was in college, and started playing when I got out of college, and it's been a goal of mine. And been played in several competitive events. I can't say I've won a lot, but I enjoy that. And so golf kind of replaces that competitiveness, to where I can get out and compete against the golf course, and also compete against the guys I'm playing with. And it's a game that you can't perfect. And so it changes day to day. And I think that's kind of what drives me to that game, is continue to drive, get better and better at that, even though you can't perfect it. When you have a good day out there, it makes it feel pretty good.
Have you had some favorite golf partners through the years?
Well, I've been fortunate to play a lot, with a lot of pros, and I got a chance. We're talking about this. I had a chance to play with Arnold Palmer. I've had a chance to play with Jack Nicklaus and Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson, and it's always been a treat for me to play with them and to see the quality that the people that they are, but also, learn from them and see how they play. And I think that everyone says, well, yeah, when you get done playing football, you can go ahead and play on the PGA Tour, and it's like, oh yeah. Until you see how good those guys are, and even the senior tour, right? It's like, oh, you can get on the senior tour, but you realize that we still are amateur golfers when you get out and play against those guys and realize how good they are.
Well, Jimmy Johnson at 45 went from driving NASCARs to driving Indy cars, so anything's possible, right, John?
That's right. Never say never. And anything that can, you can compete at, that gives you get those juices flowing, is always for me, a lot of fun.
What kind of golfer are you? How good are you?
Well, I would say I'm a pretty good golfer. I work at it. I think my index is like 2.0 right now. And so I continue to work at it. And I'm 60 years old, be 61 at the end of the month. And so realizing that runway is getting a little bit shorter. So I try to play as much golf as I possibly can.
The Broncos season coming up, you're going to have fans in the stands again, which I know will be a welcome addition, a chance to go back to some semblance of normalcy. What are you looking forward to in this year's NFL season?
You're right, and I think last year was such a tough year. I think it's what a tremendous feat, and what Roger Goodell and the NFL did to be able to get every game played last year, 256 games with everything that was going on, and with COVID, that, I thought it was a tremendous feat. Obviously it was very difficult to get everybody on the same page with Zoom meetings and not being able to practice very much, no off season, curtailed training camp. And so I think it's, I think the people are going to enjoy the fact that we're getting a chance to work this off season, and especially for young players. I think it really hurt young players last year, and we're a very young team. And so I think we're going to have a chance to get better with an off season, get these guys out there and training and working in a better feel for it. So, the NFL is the NFL. They've got tremendous players. The talent in the NFL is in all the sports leagues, just continues to grow, just with their training techniques and the athletic ability of these kids coming out of college, and the way they take care of their bodies and the nutrition and the way they go about their business. It's, the athleticism is just, so much better than it ever has been. So I think it'll be another great year. I think as far as the Broncos, I think we have a good chance. I think obviously we're in a tough division with Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City.
Oh, yeah. Talking about talented players. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We got the Raiders, and then, you got Herbert and with the LA Chargers. And so we got a very difficult division, but really think that we have a chance to take the next step. George Peyton, who is our new general manager, has done a tremendous job this offseason and adding people to it. We had a successful draft, but you never know about the draft until you see him get out there and play either. So those are always the unknown, and I think that's a great thing about the NFL as far as keeping everybody on the level playing field. But it'll be an exciting one. We're excited about getting started again. We're going through our last mini camp right now, and then the players will take off for about 4 weeks and then get ready to go and start training camp at the end of July. And, hopefully we're right back in the thick of things.
How would the 1983 John Elway compete in the 2021 NFL season?
Well, you always think that you can compete. Now, like I said, I think the athletes are, it's so much better. But I thought that, you always think that no matter how old you are, you always think that you can compete with all levels of the athletes in today's world. But, it's a different game. I think the 83 John Elway would love to look at what's going on in this game and the amount of times that the quarterbacks are throwing the football and the way the offenses are now spreading the field and getting the balls downfield and throwing the football so much more. So as a quarterback, I would have to say that from 1983 to till today, it'd be a heck of a lot more fun playing in today's game.
Yeah, no kidding. Talk about a quarterback's game now. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Would the 2021 John Elway look at the 83 John Elway and say that he was a spoiled brat?
Well, it depends on which side you're on, right?
Right.
I guess if I was in Baltimore, I'd say, yeah, the kid, he's a spoiled brat. But I guess if I was on the Denver Broncos side, I'd have been thrilled the fact that they went ahead and traded him and got him to the Denver Broncos. And so, depending on what side you look at it or which side I might have been on there, I can understand the feelings on both sides.
Great answer. This spring, final thing, John. This spring, 20 years ago, you lost your father. I've got to imagine that Jack would be extremely proud of where his son is today, not only with what happened on the field, but also what's happened in business. What would he say?
I would hope, because he was the guy that, he was always the guy that if he told me I did okay, then I believed him, and I think that, but he was also the guy that kicked me in the tail and said, no, your attitude and where you're going about things is the wrong way. But, I would hope that I'm looking forward to getting a chance to see him again. And that, if he gives me a pat on the back, that's all I would need. And it would make everything that I've ever done in my life complete.
Did you win the slipper race?
Most of the times, yeah, but there was usually a big fight. But
I bet.
As I got bigger and stronger, my sisters didn't have a chance.
I can imagine. John Elway, thank you so much for joining me today on Cars and Culture. What a treat walking through your NFL career as well as your business career. We wish you the best of luck in whatever road you go down going forward.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate the time. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.
The automobile is one of the most important inventions that revolutionized the modern world. In America, the rich history of car culture runs deep as technology continues to shape the future of the industry. Jason Stein,
former publisher of Automotive News,
is here to share the stories of people passionate about cars, from industry leaders and innovators to car-obsessed celebrities. Buckle up as Jason takes you inside the boardroom, onto the track, and around the bend on Cars and Culture on Sirius XM Business Radio.